Welcome to the Rudy Reyes Show. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm your host for the next hour here on WBLZSports.com. You can find many ways to listen today, whether it be on Google or iTunes. And if for some reason you cannot find it there, go to the RudyReyesShow.com and pick what works for you. However, if you're tuning in, thank you for doing so. I am also on Facebook Live, so be sure to check that out. Anyway, welcome. Good afternoon, everyone. Look, we have a great show on tap for you. Buckle up, sit down, get ready, because not only do I have a special guest today in Howard Shatsky, but we'll talk about the falling of grace for one of probably the best and greatest, most achieved golfers on the planet. We'll also be talking about the NFC East, why it's not possible. And maybe we're talking about OTAs as being a part of the process. Should they be? Should they not be? We're going to weigh in on that as well. And of course, as you might expect, the outcome for the catfishers of, well, one man, his charges floundered and dropped. See what I did there? Drop. Anyway, he decided to throw catfish on the ice during Game 1 of the Stanley Cup final between the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Nashville Predators. Look, these two teams will face one another again tonight for Game 2 at PPG Arena in Pittsburgh as the Penguins try to take a 2-0 lead in this final series over the Predators. Welcome, Howard Shatsky, to the show. Howard, how are you?
Rudy, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
Good. It's a beautiful day out. Let's talk some sports and let's let the dogs out.
Let the dogs out, the catfish, well, I mean, whatever you have in your pocket, just make sure you empty it and leave it at the step before you come in. Anyway, welcome to the show. Howard, I know we were looking at this, and I kind of jested about it yesterday on the show. And of course, you couldn't get any more puns having to relate to this catfish incident. I don't know if you were a witness of that during Game 1 of Stanley Cup Finals, but when you seen this come across your Twitter line, as I know you're on Twitter at Howard Shatsky, anybody want to get involved with Howard and see all of his great stuff that he has, go to at Howard Shatsky and throw him a follow. But what are your thoughts about this? I mean, how did he get the fish in the arena? I want to know.
I don't think it's that hard to sneak a fish into an arena.
You mean a whole fish or half a fish?
I would imagine he put it down his pants leg.
What, duct tape or something? I mean, it's slippery. It's fish. If you try to put it on your leg and try to duct tape it, I mean, I don't know.
As long as you have some laundry detergent to wash your jeans when you get back home, you're all right.
But then, look, he passed through security. Do you not smell? I mean, do fish not smell? I mean, you got to walk through.
We have crabs in Maryland, so I couldn't tell you.
Crabs, fish, man, this thing's gone to the pounds. I'm telling you, it's just brutal. Anyway, his charges were dropped, Howard. There would be no charges whatsoever by the Pittsburgh police and or judicial system there. They just had a feeling that one fish, washes clean once you strip it down to nothing. And, at the end of the day, it was Mr. Waddell. Apparently you had some communications with the fish man. What kind of conversation ensued after wanting to follow him post fish tossing incident?
Just why? For what reason? I see people do things, and often I'm just curious about why they get done.
Well, you and everybody else.
You look recently at the guy who fooled the whole college football world by pretending he was a recruit.
Well, yeah, okay, that's one of looking at it. The catfish was not being recruited, and clearly he wasn't either, except for when he was basically detained. And obviously they were withdrawn. It didn't take long for them to figure out that it was an error. He had no priors. There was nothing really associated. There was no malice. But what was even more interesting is when, and I mentioned this the other day on the show, is that the guy trying to pick it up with the shovel, pail shovel, I guess, combination, it fell out and back onto the ice, and I thought to myself, man, just lift it up. Nobody wants to drag, dead catfish along ice. I don't know. I just thought that was really interesting. It was strange, but needless to say, the Penguins and Predators will play on the very same ice tonight. And when I look at these two teams, I think to myself, how did Matt Murray just pull it off, allowing 3 goals to get past him, where the barrage of 30-plus shots on goal existed? What were your thoughts about that game? What stood out to you about what either the Penguins did not do or lack thereof down the stretch, or what the Predators do and what they'll continue to try to do by trying to tie this series up tonight against Pittsburgh?
Well, I think in hockey, often the team that wins is the team that has the hot goaltender. And I see Pittsburgh taking the series. Unfortunately, since I live here in Maryland, I'm a Capitals fan, and we can't seem to get past the Penguins. But I see Pittsburgh as the best team in the NHL right now.
Well, they've been playing very hot. Matt Murray just getting, and look, he's been in this position before. He was put in place of Marc-Andre Fleury. And what's even more interesting about Matt Murray is that it was his birthday the other day. So happy birthday, Matt, if you're listening. And then secondly, what was even more interesting than that is that he just took the barrage, the ongoing, he may as well had a bulletproof, vest on his chest, protecting him from the onslaught of offense that the Nashville Predators were really trying to put on the Penguins. What did you see the Penguins not do down the stretch, and how did Gunsel even get in position in order to get that game-winning goal?
As far as getting into position, one mistake and a guy's in position, that's hockey for you. You can play well the whole game, and Pittsburgh's had a lot of injuries on defense, so I think that's affecting them a little bit. If they were totally healthy, I think they would dominate Nashville, to be honest with you.
Well, and what's kind of interesting about that, and that's a good point. Pittsburgh has been hot, but again, when you play Pittsburgh, and I'm not trying to sound like a homer because the Penguins are now back-to-back Stanley Cup final, a playing team that seems to be on fire, doing exactly what they need to do and getting it done, regardless of who it is on the ice, regardless of the injuries they seem to have. And what's really interesting is that Gunsel has found a way to not only getting the assist that he has needed by Sidney Crosby, which is obviously his idol. What was it about Gunsel, and did you see him maybe making an impact and could make one tonight?
He could, again, I look towards the goalie, and Murray's been hot in the playoffs. So I see no reason to think that won't continue tonight.
Yeah, I do as well. He's been doing it all season long. But look, when I look at the Penguins and I look at the lack of offensive effort, and someone had mentioned on Twitter it was an ugly win, and you're right, it was an ugly win. And then, of course, the fan would say, I'll take 20 ugly wins, 5 ugly wins, 4 ugly wins. Is it going to get any uglier? Is it going to get any chippier between these two teams?
I think it'll be the same style of play. And, as far as that, a win is a win. You talk to any coach or player, you get to the Stanley Cup Finals, they'll take the win no matter how they get it.
That's exactly right. Hey, welcome to the Rude Dog Show. Lou, how are you?
Yes. Hey, but not for nothing, but it's supposed to be that way. It's the finals. This is what the teams play for. Of course they're going to try anything to win, even if it's dirty. What you expect? When fights come,
Well, fights are part of the game. We seen in Major League Baseball, I mentioned it the other day on the show, Bryce Harper now only serving a 3-game suspension, not a, multiple, like a 5 or 10 or maybe in a 15-game suspension.
You know what I don't get, though? You know what I don't get, Rudy? Is that they both were in the incident, but yet they both don't get the same number of games suspended. Why is one game less than the other?
It's favoritism.
Or 4 games, as the case is.
It's favoritism. It really is favoritism. What are your thoughts on that, Howard? That was going to be our next topic of discussion about why Harper only received a 3-day and Strickland received more.
Well, I don't think Harper was the one who decided to have a 90-mile-an-hour fastball drilled into his side. So the pitcher's the one who threw the first action. He's if somebody drilled you with a fastball intentionally, would you just stand there or would you charge the mound? Personally, I'm going to go after that. I'm going to go after that pitcher. Oh, absolutely, it was intentional. Ooh. And you saw Buster Posey didn't do anything to stop Harper. I think because he knew if somebody threw at him, he would charge the mound too.
Yeah, you're right. And he has no business receiving any ridicule whatsoever in the locker room. He has no dog in the fight here. He has no dog in the fight because, as any batter knows, if you get beamed by a fastball, if you get hit by a curve in the helmet or in the arm or the wrist or anywhere else, you make the decision at that point what to do. You're in the wrong if you believe that charging the mound when you cut one off your ankle as you're trying to go deep in a full swing, that you have no business even thinking about charging that pitcher because you're the one who touched the ball. You hit the ball. Therefore, it is your contact and it's your fault. But Howard, I looked at that play. I looked at it from like 3 different angles. When Bryce Harper took his back leg out he was stepping on and went into the swing, it looked as though he put his leg in that position to get a hit because it was in the batter's box. And is there something I'm missing there?
I think what you're missing is the history between the two and the bit of showboating Harper did after taking him deep last. Supposedly part of the
type of punishment, regardless of who's involved in the process.
Now, I did find it rather interesting, though, how much Twitter was interested in Bryce Harper's hair.
Well, you look like he just woke up. He took his helmet off, and instead of swinging, he flung his helmet down and then trying to hit him. I mean, it was like the best version of bedhead possible. I wonder if he has a contract with maybe Head and Shoulders or something. I don't know. Anyway, so I'm more interested in the fact that Bryce Harper got a 3-game suspension, which is not a big deal. It's a drop in the bucket for him after signing a multi-year extension with the Nationals. In all fairness, I only seen that play after it happened. I wasn't watching the Giants. I wasn't watching the Nationals. I was hopefully looking at a winning game by the Pittsburgh Pirates, of course, a team that I look for to do something more, and unfortunately dead last in the NL Central. So we won't go there. I have much more material to talk about the Pirates right now. Of course, they are my team, but I'm going to have to tread lightly here because I have some not nice things to talk about what's currently going on in that system. But I'll leave that for another time. Going back to the Penguins here. If anybody recalls this or not, I'm live. Facebook, by the way. As a matter of fact, if you want the experience, go to SeatGiant.com. If you want the experience, not just a piece of paper, not a paper airplane, other than the one you're going to climb into to attend your event, go to SeatGiant.com and they can get you the experience you are looking for. In 2009, the Penguins and the Bruins in 2011 were both down in the series just to come back and stun their opponents. Bruins were down 0-2, and the Penguins were down also 0-2. So, look, I don't believe the Predators are at us by any stretch of the imagination because of the barrage that they put on Matt Murray and company. Not a lot of defense, and unfortunately a lot of power plays that kept that puck on the side of the ice of the Pittsburgh Penguins. And they need to respond. They need to respond with a barrage of their own by being able to control the puck, get it down where it needs to, get your groupings out, make sure everybody is working in the same exact symmetry, regardless of whatever line you have in, whether it's an HBK line or not. I think the Pittsburgh Penguins would be better suited to keep the offense going instead of just allowing these onesie-twosies. And I think it was a very fortunate game that the Penguins won as they stun Rinne. But if they keep Rinne on the ropes defensively by creating more shot opportunities, those will lead to goals, and that will ultimately get them to 2-0 if they don't and they fall behind, this could be a 1-1 series. And I think Nashville's good enough. I believe Nashville's good enough. They're not here because there's some chumps. I believe they're here because they want to play and they want to win. I believe it's going to be a great series down the stretch. But look out if the Penguins get off early and decide to score early and often, have the ability to do so, which would be polar opposite of what you've seen headed out of second intermission towards the end of the game. So I look at these playoffs. You stated it favored the series by the Penguins. Do you believe they're going to take this series away from Nashville Predators by any stretch?
I still say.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, they're winning 6.
All right, you heard it there. Howard Shatsky, ladies and gentlemen. The guy is, he's been around a long time in the business. He knows his sports and he does it well. Of course, Lou's hanging on. I want to switch over here, and of course, we've already talked about the catfish, and boy, do I like catfish, just not on ice. But we're switching over to the NFC East. There was Ezekiel Elliott was involved in the car accident about 10 days ago. If you remember last year, he was the NFL leading rusher at 1,631 yards, and unfortunately remained sidelines due to the lingering effects having to do with that accident. Not really doing a whole lot. Add the non-mandatory OTAs. Of course, those are going on league-wide, but the NFC could be up for grabs. Don't forget, the Cowboys lost a plethora of defensemen, secondary. Orlando Scandrick, okay, great, he's there. But I look at the Cowboys, and of course, last year, everybody wants to, that happened last year. You're right, it did happen last year. Could the Cowboys be the repeat performers in the NFC East this year? Howard, when I look at the defensive takeaways, and I mean literally takeaways, lots of veterans, free agents flowing out of the Cowboys River. Can the Cowboys, with Dak Prescott under center on the offensive side of the ball, Ezekiel, will they have to do more because of the departures in the defensive unit?
You got to look at the kind of points they're putting up. It's hard to match that. And, with another year of experience and one of the best offensive lines in football, unfortunately, since I grew up in Jersey and have represented more Giants and Jets than any other team, I see Dallas taking the NFC East.
Mm-hmm. So do I.
You're right, but again, defensively, because of all the losses, they're going to have to rotate Jordan Lewis. Look, they went ahead and drafted Nolan Carroll. Okay, Nolan Carroll worked out with the first team this past Tuesday, but he was arrested on the suspicion of DWI. What's really interesting about this is that the Cowboys are historically drafting guys. There's a laundry list of them who continually find themselves into trouble. Whether it's domestic violence, whether it's arrest, and in all fairness, to take this more globally, in the NFL, it's rampant and it needs to stop. It needs to stop now. Think about what you're doing before you do it. That's my mini rant right there. But you look at Nolan Carroll, he's, he could be cut. Then you have cornerbacks that could be moving over, Anthony Brown, Chidobe Awuzie, and Jordan Lewis. I don't know what they're thinking. I mean, they're going to cut a guy that they just drafted because of DWI and DUIs and things of that nature. I mean, is that something that a team could really get away from if they're trying to negate distractions from preventing progress?
I don't necessarily think one guy's legal problems are a distraction. Unless it's the quarterback or someone like Zeke Elliott. But it becomes a question of how does it look to the fans? How do the Giants look when they have Josh Brown on their team? You look at what's going on now with Kaepernick, and is it because he's not a good enough quarterback? Or is it because he's being blackballed? Now, to me, I personally don't think he's that good. And I actually asked that question today on Twitter of a former NFL personnel director who happen to agree with me. But I do think, eventually some team will have an injury and Kaepernick will end up getting signed by someone. And it'll be interesting to see what the fan reaction is to that.
Well, you're talking about Chris Brown, and look, Josh Brown, Josh Brown could not have been any more of a blatant, outright, just somebody that you don't really want on your roster versus the DWI. Yeah, but in fairness, when you look at it, they both broke the law. Josh Brown was in recovery. He'd already received a myriad of warnings. He's received all types of, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, Howard, since you're out in that area, you cover a lot of Giants. You have some underneath your repertoire. But Josh Brown received multiple reprimands over it. He's received counseling over it. And unfortunately, it just went right back to where he was trying to get away from. When you look at Kaepernick and his issues, talking about him not still being drafted, but it does make sense for the Seahawks to go after him. I don't know that he's not that good. I think that he's good in the right system. I don't think that it was there for him in San Francisco. Don't forget, he's only a few years removed from being in the Super Bowl. So it's not as if he doesn't have the offensive line. It's decision-making process, I think, overall for him that has a lot to do with the detractors that you see on the field, with the kneeling. Despite the PR efforts, despite him giving suits away, despite him doing all of these variety of things, the biggest question is whether or not that will take away from the negatives. How do you see the Seahawks grabbing him?
I see somebody grabbing him at some point. Whether or not it'll be Seattle, I can't really say, but I think eventually he ends up on a team. It may take, a couple games into the season until a quarterback goes down, but when you look at who's out there and available to be signed, he'll be one of the first guys that gets with somebody.
I believe so. I think what's going to happen is you're going to go through all your OTAs. You're going to go through all the organized team activities, mandatory, non-mandatory, and then you're going to find out who you want your quarterback to be. And I don't believe that Kaepernick is going to get starter money. I don't believe anybody's going to grab him as a starter. Why? Because he has not proved himself as being a starter in the long-term effects for being a starting center, starting quarterback under center for any NFL team. And that obviously included the San Francisco 49ers, for which he declined to further and dropped everything. That's a whole nother topic. I disagree with how he did it. I disagree with the way that he did it, but he did what he felt he needed to do. Again, it goes back to decision-making processes. If you don't have those, if they're not hooked up, if they're not lined up, you will end up making bad decision after bad decision. Speaking of bad decisions,
let me cut you off right there, since we're on the Rude Dog Show and you enjoy mini rants. I'm just going to give you my little mini rant right now. Everybody always wants the players to speak up and to be active and to be vocal and not to give vanilla answers in an interview. And the moment that a player does that, then he gets criticized. And whether or not you agree with what Kaepernick did was appropriate, whether or not he expressed it in the right way, whether or not he should have done it during a football game or done it during the national anthem, I don't think it was meant to be disrespectful towards the country or to anybody who's served for the country. I think he was expressing his opinion, which, quite frankly, I see the fans ask for all the time. So you can't have it both ways. If you want a player to express his opinion, you have to accept the fact that you might not like that opinion. And if all you want is vanilla answers from guys or guys to say no comment, then keep doing things like criticizing Kaepernick. And, I applaud the guy for taking criticism and continuing to do what he did.
I agree with about 90% of that. I just don't agree with the stage that he put it on. And I've said this time and time again. If you want to go hold a picket sign And you want to do it outside of the stadium?
I agree with you. I absolutely don't agree with the stage that he did it on. But I also see his right to do it on that stage.
Everybody has a right to do whatever they want. This is a free country. However, this is also a business, and if you're going to kneel down in front of your boss, that's a whole nother conversation. If you want to stay upright and just, you don't really even have to hold. I mean, how many players have you seen that actually hold their hand over their heart? They'll just put their hands at their side. They'll put their hands on their back, collapsing, as I'm looking here on Facebook Live, and that's it. There is no kneeling down. There's no helmet action. Everybody stays upright. Just because you don't believe in the principles, or you have a beef with an entity, you're still working. You work for somebody else. It's like me working for someone. So you know what? I'm going to take a break because I want to. Well, we're going to fire you because we want to. And he's no exception to the rule. Just because he's a quarterback doesn't mean, and not a great one, but a good one, doesn't give him the right still to sit down in front of his employer and say, well, shoe on you. Everybody else is doing it, but I want to do something else. So that means that when you're not on the clock, when you're at home, you're in the shower, you're taking a bath, you're shaving your face, whatever it may be, kneel then. Kneel somewhere else, not on a national stage. You did it to prove a point.
Well, I don't know if you really want him to Skype himself when he's in the bathtub, but, it's one of those things where, you are right about that. He does have an employer. They do have customers that come to those games, and may not agree with what he does, and that may affect whether or not they continue to come to the games. So he is taking the risk that it's going to affect his career or his standing with that team.
Yeah, and unfortunately it did. It took a negative toll. It took a negative turn. Look, I'm not saying that players should be barred from saying whatever they want, because they shouldn't.
Now, do you really think he'd still be there had he not done that? Because I don't really think the decision was made based on that.
No, it wasn't solely based on that. Absolutely not. It was not solely based on that. Look, Colin Kaepernick did well with what he had, and again, the decision-making processes of him trying to run with the ball, not tuck it under your arm, not run with the ball in fluid motion, but try to hang it out there, had more turnovers, had interceptions. It was misery on display. So he fell out of grace in San Francisco. Doesn't mean somebody else isn't going to take a chance on him. Biggest question is, why is he still out there? There has to be an underlying reason. Is it him saying, you know what, I want starter money and that's all I'm going to get. I'm not going to play for anything less than starter money? Then he's a bigger fool than I thought he was. Instead of having an opportunity to be on a roster, to be on a competitive team, a team like the Seattle Seahawks as a good example, who are always on the step of achieving greatness by acquiring another Super Bowl to add to the one they already have, why would you want to not be a part of that? What is holding you back? Is it the man? What's the real reason here? I'm calling it like it is. Colin Kaepernick, if you're listening, call into the show. 216-539-9967. I want to hear your thoughts about it. We'll see what happens there. But moving on, we go from one oblong-shaped looking ball to a white ball. Now, make no mistake, the winner of 14 majors has fallen from grace. Everybody knows it. Everybody sees it. People are tired of it. Unfortunately, you really need to look at the mitigating circumstances. He took a breathalyzer. There was nothing, no BAC. There was nothing. It was 0.00. He was clearly behind the wheel, over-medicated in a car. If you do that, that is a DUI. I mean, this guy has played 14 major golf tournaments. He's one of the best golfers in the world in the history of golf, not currently, in the history of golf. And unfortunately, he was quoted saying, I understand the severity of what I did. I take full responsibility for my actions. Howard, you've dealt with a lot of guys with issues somewhat similar to a guy by the name of said Tiger Woods. What are your thoughts about the situation for him? Do you believe in your heart of hearts that he has an opportunity to come back from where he is right now?
I think he first has to address his personal issues, and I think it's up to people that are close to him. You have to, in this business, I believe, the best representatives are those that choose not to be yes men, and the people that are close to him and have influenced him, I feel they have a responsibility now to step in and come to the guy and sit him down and say, look, you need to go get some help. And once he gets some help, but let's face it, it's not that same 17, 18-year-old fist-pumping Tiger. He's played, well over a decade on the tour now. He's had a multitude of injuries, and I personally think it's what's most affected his career in a negative way is the amount of injuries that he's had. And having had a spinal fusion myself, I can tell you it's awfully hard to play golf after that, especially at that high of a level. And he's had a severe knee injury, so I think, he's banged up at this point. So I don't ever see him being what he was again. Now, could he possibly win another major? Sure. I think if he gets his act together, he could possibly get lucky. He does have that type of talent where, just like in hockey, if you have a hot goaltender, you can steal a series. I could see him getting hot for 3 days and winning a major. But it won't be consistently.
Well, it hasn't been consistent. He withdrew from the last 2 majors because of undisclosed injuries or his back, or there's always something preventing him from coming back. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that he could be hooked on prescribed medication. It happens all the time. You're taking it yourself, Howard. I mean, look, there has to be a fine line to say, okay, I need to separate my emotional mindset, my emotional decisions from logic. The logical decision says, if I'm going to take tons of drugs, if I'm going to over-medicate myself, then I'm headed down the wrong path. If I need these more than I should, then there's problems. There's problems all over the place for him. He lost his dad, and now his dad is not a part of his game. He used to attend his game a lot. And I think that there's a lot of conversation surrounding what does Tiger Woods do now? And everybody wants to shun him. Everybody wants to talk smack about him and say, well, he's a has-been, he's a wash-up. He's not a has-been. I don't think he's a wash-up either. I think people need to rally behind people who have these issues to get them the help they really need. Not for selfish reasons, but because they want to see somebody come back. I'll tell you what. I'm going to put it on the calendar right now. Tiger Woods will come back. The question is, when?
Yeah, but do you think he's going to be the same Tiger that he once was? Because, he's now over 40 years old, and, I think he's probably lost a step by now.
Well, he could have, but guys like Jack Nicklaus, Arnold Palmer, I mean, how many of these guys played it in their 60s? Seriously. And they won majors doing it. Could he be the same Tiger as he once was? Maybe, but the only person who truly knows is him.
He'll never be the same Tiger. Like I said, he may be the same Tiger for one tournament and put together a good run, but I don't ever see him being the same Tiger. And, what people have to remember is, opiate abuse is something that runs throughout our entire society. It's not unique to sports, and these guys are no different, other than the fact that they have extraordinary athletic ability and a lot more money. They're still people. And, we need to take a look at how these drugs are prescribed and why, and, take a good hard look at what we're doing as a society. And you look at guys at Eugene Monroe, you want to talk about being blackballed. Look at how early he's out of the league, and I think mostly due to his stand on medical marijuana being legal for the NFL. And yet they won't do that, but, they'll hand out opiates like M&Ms. So I think Tiger's like anybody else. You take the pills because you don't want to hurt, and, then some people overuse them.
But won't they be hurt in the long run that way?
Well, what happens, from personal experience, I can tell you, is your body becomes immune to them after a while. It adapts to them, and they don't help you as much. And, that's why I'm careful and will never take more than I'm supposed to, no matter how much I hurt. But people don't want to hurt. So when your body adapts to them, they take more. Or if their body doesn't and it helps them, they don't take them because they want to be addicts. They take them because they don't want to hurt.
No, but what about their side effects that probably come with it, though?
Oh, absolutely, without question.
I could hurt them.
And that's why I believe marijuana should be legalized. And, you look at, I read an article just the other day about studies where it says that in states where it's legal, opiate overdoses have decreased by 25%.
Well, but look, so the whole marijuana thing, I understand the NFL is slowly creeping into the conversation to have a wider topic discuss about marijuana and its usage. Yes. Back before I was ever thought of, or my parents ever probably landed in this continent, that those things were used for medicinal purposes only. It was not taken topically. It was taken by inhaling it. Now, I get it. This isn't the 1800s. This isn't even the early 1900s. But the fact is that marijuana has been known in its long-term usage. I'm not saying in the interim. I'm talking about long-term usage can destroy brain cells. It's been proven. Now, I understand that there is...
Well, you got to look at the lesser of two evils. Is it better to take... Now, I believe when, you have to look at an age limit because a young child's brain is still developing and there's more likelihood of, damage in that case. But, as an adult, when I look at the two evils, alcohol will ruin your liver. Opiate abuse can kill you. Marijuana obviously can damage your lungs and, maybe can have an effect, a negative effect. But when I look at the lesser of what the evils are, to me, that's the lesser of the evils.
But why even take a chance at the evils to begin with? Look, smoking one marijuana cigarette is equivalent to 4 cigarettes. Imagine, if you will, smoking 4 cigarettes at the same exact time. How is that a benefit to a top athlete? How is... I don't understand.
Well, I'm not advocating that you blaze away all day long.
I'm just trying to understand it, though. I'm just trying to understand how would smoking marijuana, and I understand that there is a benefit to it. If you're a cancer patient, if you're somebody who's currently suffering from cancer, marijuana has been known to subdue some of the effects of the cancer. I've had family member pass away from cancer. I understand it. I get it. But marijuana, from an athletic standpoint, is of no benefit to somebody who runs a 4.240.
And that's why I believe it should be allowed. It's not providing you a competitive advantage. And, if people got the phone calls that I've received during my career on Monday mornings after a game, the human body was not made to play football. And the abuse that these guys put their body through over a 17-game season is just incredible. And that's why the Thursday night games and the Monday night games, while they may be profitable, we need to really examine what a detriment they are to a player's health. And it's extremely, by the end, by the 8th game of the season, everybody has some kind of injury. And, you talk to people in the know, and what's the injury rate in the NFL? 100%. Because at some point, everybody has something wrong with them. And players want to get back on the field. which brings up the Tom Brady issue. And, I absolutely believe, I don't know whether it's true in Brady's case, but I can tell you for a fact there are players that have hit concussions to be able to stay in the game.
Well, they have every reason to. They have every reason to, because at the end of the day, it's like being a bull rider, right? Somebody who's going to conquer the bull. You win for the buckle. You do it for the buckle. These guys are doing it for the Lombardi. So why not sacrifice yourself by hiding something that you believe? Again, basing what you don't know about concussions.
Why not sacrifice yourself? Look at Cortez Kennedy. Look at Junior Seau. We now know the long-term effects of playing football. Back when I first started representing players, people didn't have the knowledge that we have now. And you see how many players die at a young age. We see what kind of effect CTE has on players. We've seen multiple players like Kevin Turner, Steve Smith, Dwight Clark, about 5 or 6 guys from the CFL have all been diagnosed with ALS. So we now know the effects of concussions and of playing football. So, I'm a big advocate now, and, my fellow agents may not like this because they lose commissions, but, if you're going to play in the NFL, make your money, get to free agency, get paid, and then retire. I think more and more the years of playing 10, 12 years, you're not going to see that anymore.
Yeah, it could be a thing of the past. Yesterday, just so we have to take a quick commercial break, but I wanted to leave this segment on this note. I was talking to Tawana Smith yesterday, who handles the Athletes Nexus CEO and founder, and we were talking about something similar along those lines, Howard. I may have you join me on that show as well, but we were talking about how the longevity in the NFL, your days are numbered from the minute you enter that field, the minute you enter that tunnel, the minute that your name is called on draft day, that is it. I mean, you are on a ticking time bomb. And at that point, your decisions are based on what you know, by having the right people around you to help you with the decision-making process. And I don't mean a family, but I don't mean a sponge. Anyway, that has happened as well. Okay. People take advantage of NFL players in a very consistent manner, especially family. It's no big secret because they look at them and say, you know what? I want this. I want that. Because they're related, they pull this, can you do this for me? I'm only going to ask you once, and then you get it again, and then you do it again, and it's just a never-ending situation. I think when you look at entertainers over the last decade have had the wrong people surrounding them, not getting the help they need, but feeling that the help that they need are the ones that are friends, the ones that have been there for 15, 20 years. I have a friend I've known for almost 40 years, and am I going to rely on him to give me medical advice? I mean, seriously, am I going to rely on, a veterinarian to give me thoughts on concussions? It's just ludicrous. So get the right help that you need.
On the other hand, as an agent, I have spoken to my players about going to get second opinions after seeing the team doctor. We've had players that have filed suit against teams for being misdiagnosed. So you do, while we aren't doctors, we do have to be aware of the medical issues and be able to advise our clients, when to see people outside the team doctor, where to go to have surgery done. And the team frequently, a lot of times will put pressure on the player to use the team doctor. And I can tell you a story from back in the day, and I won't mention the team or the player, but the team was very upset that he had torn his knee and wasn't going to use the team doctor to do the reconstruction. And we sent him up to New York to the hospital of special surgery there, and we tried to take as much of the heat as possible for the decision. And he's walking down the hallway in the complex one day, and the owner's son puts his arm around him and asks him how he's feeling, and He says, man, that doctor's the best. He did my knee when I blew my knee from skiing. So the players should use the team doctor, but the owner's son used the doctor that we sent our client to, and he took heat for that. So I think players do have to be responsible, you know, not only for their money, like you just talked about, Rudy, but also for their health. You know, this is your career, this is your health, and, you know, you just saw one Trent Richardson. I think his family spent, what was it, $1.3 million in a month, and he blames his financial advisors and wants to sue them. You know, I don't care if you have the greatest people in the world. You need to keep an eye on your checkbook and what's going on.
It is on you. The ultimate level of responsibility is on your shoulders. You are the one, and again, we were talking about yesterday with Tawana Smith in regards to you are the owner of your own destiny. If you would rather flounder your millions of dollars while you're playing and not learn how to rebuild that money, before you ever think about exiting the NFL, you should really go listen to somebody who knows what they're talking about, who's certified, and who has done every bit of research possible in their respective position to get the advice from. You're not going to go ask somebody at a drive-through and ask them what you should do with your 401k. It's ridiculous. So as an NFL player, recognize that you are the one who's solely responsible for making a decision in regards to what you do with your money, because this is a not for long. Get it? NFL, not for long. That is the way it is. That's the way it is. I need to take a quick commercial break. I'll be right back to wrap things up. This is Rudy Reyes on the Rude Dog Show at WBLZ Sports, joined by Howard Shatsky as well as Lou, who always likes to hang out. So we'll be right back.
Thanks a lot.
And welcome back to the Rude Dog Show. This is Rudy Reyes. We have about 8 minutes left. And the only reason why it's 8 minutes because there is so much to talk about, and unfortunately an hour is not enough to get it done. Welcome back to the show, Howard Shatsky, who is probably one of the most informed agents I think I've spoken to in some time here on the show. Howard, I have to ask you, Do your agents, as an agent yourself, do you find that athletes come to you more often than maybe they should? In other words, should they go see their doctor? Should they go talk to somebody who has medical knowledge before coming to you with any issues or problems? And if so, what do you do to help get them the help they need?
Their trust in their representation, they usually talk to their agents first about most things. The smart ones, anyway. I mean, you have guys in this business that are very good at what they do. And when you've got somebody that's done this for 15 or 20 years, there's pretty much nothing at this point that I haven't run into. So, and there's plenty of other guys like that also. So I think these guys, they should most definitely go to their representation about things and to get advice.
Should there be tough love? I mean, you don't have to give me a name of one of your clients, but what kind of tough love is involved in letting these guys know that they should not be doing this? I mean, how many call you at 1 a.m., 2 a.m., 3 a.m. and say, I'm in jail or I've done something stupid? And I mean, what kind of tough love do you have to give them in order for them to really wake up and smell the coffee and get on with their life and correct whatever wrongs?
Well, I think that depends on what type of agent you want to be. If you want to be the type of agent that doesn't say anything just to make sure you don't get fired, then you don't do anything. But that doesn't help your clients. So I think you have an obligation at times, to have a talk with some of your guys. And, over the years, I've had to do that several times. Whether it be about, I had one player who had gone to multiple Pro Bowls, had Super Bowl rings, had about 6 or 7 knee surgeries. I just want to play one more game, and, he wanted to, get shot up, just have the ability to play that one more game. And his mother, happened to be a very smart woman, who was very involved in his career. And we had a very good relationship. And I actually said to him, imagine saying this to a, 36-year-old man. I said, that's not going to happen. If you try to do that, I'm going to call your mother.
Don't get mom involved. She'll be the first one to tell you what's really going on. And make sure that if, regardless of how old you are, take you by the ear and do what you have to do. Help make the right decision. Last but not least, I want to talk about the New York Football Giants, who fell short last year without having an established running game.
Yeah, we've got about 5 minutes left. Let's bring it here.
All right, so will the New York Giants do anything in the running game? And if so, will they be anywhere near contending for the NFC crown in 2017?
Some people think they may give Dallas a run for their money. I hate to say it because I am a Giants fan. I'm grew up in New Jersey. I just don't see it. I don't think they have the talent that's necessary. I don't think the lack of a running game is really going to hinder their ability to move the ball. And it puts more pressure on Eli, and it puts more pressure on him to throw downfield to the receivers.
Well, it does, and it has. You've seen Odell Beckham get double-teamed last year, which is why they brought over Brandon Marshall. Doesn't have to travel far. He came over from the Jets to the Giants, of course, switching AFC to NFC, right, which is not a big deal. But what does that give Eli Manning the ability to do when Odell Beckham is double-teamed? Does he go to Marshall? Does he use the short passing game? How do the Giants stay competitive in this NFC East and make the Dallas Cowboys think twice and look over their shoulder as the season goes on?
The defense is going to have to step up, and Eli's going to continue to have to throw the ball. I see Sterling Shepard developing into a much better player. I think Brandon Marshall was a fantastic addition to the team. So they're going to be competitive. I just think the lack of a running game is really going to hinder their chances to get things done.
Yeah, well, I mean, they did draft Evan Ingram from Ole Miss. He is a tight end. They added someone on the defensive side, and Dalvin Tomlinson, out of Alabama, and a round 1 pick. And of course, David Webb, a quarterback for the future for the New York Giants as far as Eli Manning is concerned. Last but never least, is Davis Webb considered to be possibly the successor to Eli Manning? I mean, okay, we're not trying to put the cart before the horse, but when you think about that, Eli Manning has he's a 2-time Super Bowl winner. He's a proven champion, but is the succession plans already in place, and was that made by drafting Davis Webb?
No, I don't think that's close to happening yet. And with quarterbacks, you never know. Tom Brady was a 7th-round pick. It takes a legitimate 3 years to develop an NFL quarterback. And you see these first-round picks, get thrown in the fire. Carson Wentz is probably going to be the starter in Philadelphia now. At times he looked good last season. At times he looked like a rookie. And that's what you're going to get when you play a young quarterback. When you have a guy like Eli Manning, you're going to get that consistency. And that's why Eli has those Super Bowl rings. He's a much better quarterback than people give him credit for.
Well, hopefully the credit will be given where the credit is due, as long as they can make it challenging for Giants fans, and then that will wrap it up. Hopefully Giants will stay in contention with the Dallas Cowboys, and I have to agree with you. I don't foresee that as being it's hard for me to say, because with Dak Prescott under center for the Dallas Cowboys, they just look so good. They look so on point. They had the play action down pat. They had all the things working defensively. I just think that because of the lack of defensive gelling by the Cowboys, losing 4 starters will certainly hurt them and will also help the New York Giants gain ground. So, ladies and gentlemen, Howard Shatsky joining me here on the show. Go follow him at Howard Shatsky. Great guy. Love talking to him. Thank you, Howard, for coming on the show.
Yeah. Thank you for having me on, and thank Lou for hanging out with us.
Yeah, Lou, thanks.
Oh, thank you, Howard. Sure. Talk to you again.
He's a usual. Thanks, guys. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Rudy Reyes on the Rude Dog Show on WBLZSports.com. I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in.